Colin O'Keefe here with Wednesday's episode of LXBN TV. As everyone's well aware, Ann Curry's departure from the Today Show and her tiff with Matt Lauer has been full of drama. But does that drama constitute workplace bullying? Joining me to discuss the matter is Marylee Abrams with Abrams Schmidt, an author on the Minnesota Labor and Employment Law Blog. Marylee, first, as I mentioned, we all know that there's drama in this. But can you explain the specifics of what happened here? And does that indeed constitute workplace bullying?
Sure. This is kind of an interesting story because Ann Curry actually resigned from the Today Show. She left the air it'll be a year ago in June. And this story continues to have legs. A book was recently written based on what happened to her. And she herself has described this as professional torture. There were a series of really awful types of conduct that was kind of aimed at her by the producer, Jim Bell, of the Today Show, and also some of the colleagues there at work. One of the things that she talked about, too, was certainly indifference on the part of Matt Lauer. But I think the torture and the bullying really comes in when you take a look at some of the antics of some of the employees there. Some of the things included, packing up Ann Curry's personal things from her office and putting them in a box in some kind of a closet. Ann Curry was kind of known for having bright colored clothing. And what they did was one day when she was wearing a yellow dress, I guess that they photoshopped her picture in this yellow dress with Big Bird because, of course, he has that big yellow costume, and kind of made a Photoshop photo of that in the control booth. Jim Bell, the producer, was alleged at least, to have had kind of a program to oust her that was titled Operation Bambi. As to your question, whether or not that constitutes bullying, I think it sure gives the characterization that this was a really mean workplace. I think that it certainly draws to my mind the thought that this was the good old boys club, and certainly Ann Curry was the target of their workplace antics.
Absolutely. So second, what's the lesson here? Obviously, employers don't want to be as cruel as NBC seems it was, but are there things here that employers should pay attention to?
You would think that a company as sophisticated as NBC would have some things in place to address workplace bullying and hopefully try to avoid these types of events from happening at the workplace. So I think employers can really learn from this. I think it certainly would help employers, and we encourage our clients to have policies that talk about workplace conduct and how do you interact with other employees and about the value of respect in the workplace. I think the fact that it can happen in a workplace like NBC should not be lost to employers, that it can be happening at that workplace. I think that if you have it in your policies and people understand this isn't accepted, I think you need to have kind of how are you going to deal with this? Who is going to be responsible to look into these types of allegations? One of the questions I have, and I mentioned this in my blog, is this looks like bullying, but really is this some form of sexual harassment? Because it certainly appeared to be guys all ganging up against Ann Curry. That as a woman, she seemed to be the focus of this. No one's really writing about that, but it certainly would be a question in my mind. And in terms of what else employers can do, I think they need to train employees. Tell employees that this type of conduct is not acceptable. We expect this to be a respectful workplace. And then train supervisors as well. What do you spot? What do you look for in terms of bullying? Because in most workplaces, we're not talking about large network companies. We're talking about, middle-sized, some even mom and pop stores. What can happen in workplaces? I think that if employers teach employees that this isn't acceptable and then they train their supervisors, I think that'll go a long way to try to avoid this, because the bottom line is it really is bad for morale. You can certainly see what happens with the media, that this is 11 months later that we're still talking about it. And I think that it certainly takes away from workplace efficiency and effectiveness of employees. And I think it hits the bottom line. I think NBC is really seeing that.
Absolutely. That's the thing I take away for this is that these types of things can have a profound impact on morale, on company culture, but ultimately that leads to an even bigger impact on the company's business. And I think NBC is finding that out the hard way.
Absolutely. They've lost me. I'm not watching the Today Show anymore.
Fair enough. Once again, that was Marylee Abrams of Abrams and Schmidt. For more of her insight, be sure to visit MinnesotaLaborEmploymentLawBlog.com. And for curated commentary on legal issues in the workplace from the LexBlog Network's more than 8,000 members, visit the Employment and Labor section on LXBN.com. Thanks for joining me, Marylee.
Thank you.